you. See you in the new year.
You too. Have a good Christmas. Sustainability Fund. Welcome, Tony.
Hello.
Okay, so we're likely to have some questions on this, but I'll get you to do a brief intro first.
Okay.
And then I think the applications that we've got are actually in the PX section. If people are wanting to discuss those, and there were some indications that people did, we might move briefly into PX to discuss those, then come back out for the finishing of the discussion and the decision.
Sure. Thank you very much. Well, we are thrilled to have the Sustainability Fund offering and supporting community projects looking at our climate change goals. So it's obviously helping to support community projects, school projects, business projects that are aligning with our goals of minimising emissions, but also building resilience, supporting resilience. So we've got a really great range of projects. We're looking at having 2 funding rounds. So this is the first funding round, and we're looking to do the next one. Well, we still need to land exactly when you're available later in the year, but towards the end of the financial year anyway. And then, so we've received a good number of applications. Not all of them were stunning. We had, but in terms of the types of projects, we did receive a lot of education projects, and so there was obviously a need under the heading of climate change to actually really encourage more awareness and more personal and action on climate change. So there's a whole range of projects around education that have come through. We've also got some around transport and water and biodiversity and food. The way that the advice has been provided to you is we've had an evaluation panel, and that evaluation panel was made up of council staff from across the organisation. We also had a number of technical advisors from different parts of the council, so transport and waste and the parks unit gave us technical advice around some of the applications. So we've received some detailed information from them, and we've feed that into the recommendations we're providing to you today. I'm happy to answer questions when about the individual projects.
Any generic questions to start with? So,
is one by one item or just general?
if there's a general question about the fund and how it's done yet. Okay. So Tim?
Just if you're looking at the whole philosophy of what we're trying to do, what group here is actually targeting, say, an area of our community that's not interested?
That's not interested.
In climate change, they're just living their life, doing their thing. We've got issues with our yellow bin, etc., our green bin. So there are a large, and I'm presuming a large area in our community that are just living life, whether they just are concentrating on feeding the family, which is totally, acceptable. I'm just wondering, because you go to events, whether what they are, and you're preaching to the converted, and you're getting better ideas. So I'm just wondering. That's all.
Yes. So you are right that if you have an interest in this area, you're more likely to be participating in the sorts of activities that are proposed. It is hard to reach people who are generally not interested, and I think what our approach has been is to work with the willing as best we can, and then hopefully grow that as a snowball. So I think some of these projects really do give more motivation and momentum behind the willing, but they won't appeal to those that are generally not interested.
Yep, Jimmy. I'm not sure this funding, because some of the in relation to the minimize those waste, they apply funding from the Canterbury the Waste Joint Committee, But this one they also apply. I'm not sure whether there's any grey area.
Yes, yeah. So the intention.
Just want to know.
That's
yes.
right. So the intention of this fund is to support projects that haven't been funded by the council
yes.
already. So we can talk about some details around that.
Okay.
But also that we're not the first port of call for projects to come to. They may have received other support from the community, from businesses, or from other funds that are available in Christchurch and beyond.
Okay.
So the intention of this fund is to support projects
yes.
that are delivering practical action on the ground.
Okay.
And the terms of reference, I think that's been circulated for you, so you can see the purpose of the fund and the criteria that the fund uses.
Yes.
And one of those criteria is to have a tangible benefit, obviously, a legacy really for Christchurch, but also that it's deliverable. And then in the deliverable piece, it's really saying, do you have the skills and resources available for you to carry out this work? And that's the key question we're asking when we're looking at the funding, the resourcing they've got.
Okay.
But in terms of the overlaps between council funds, we try and minimise that through having on our evaluation panel the Strengthening Communities fund manager as well. So we get a sense of what other funds are being put to community projects. Okay. And because if there is a waste project, for example, we would then go to the waste team and ask them of their perspective on this project, but also what funding they've allocated to projects. So it's trying to be holistic and inclusive.
Okay, thank you.
Anne, and then Yanni.
Kia ora. Just when you assess an application, do you actually look at whether this work is being done in the communities by other groups? So I'm thinking about, for example, one of the goals is to enhance ecosystem resilience and nature-based green infrastructure solutions. So there are a lot of groups that are doing that work already that we are funding, and I'm also thinking about Enviro Schools and the work that they are doing. Do you assess an application in that light? Do you use that lens when you decide on whether to give a group money or not?
So the intention is to have the evaluation panel to have a good view of what is happening already in the community. The question you've asked around a particular organisation doing something already, clearly if that organisation had applied to this fund, we could then consider them as part of this bundle, but we haven't gone out and shoulder tapped anyone. We've said the fund is open, we've communicated it to the Christchurch community, and we've then received these applications. So when we're considering the applications themselves, we need to take into account the value the proposal is going to give to Christchurch, but also if there is other activities underway that would do the same thing. And clearly there is a lot of need, I suppose, in many ways. And you mentioned in the biodiversity area, there's lots of people working in that space. So that is true. There will, but we've just evaluated what was in front of us, what the proposals were, and then what were the value, how it aligned to the purpose of the fund, and how it aligned to the criteria. And then the evaluation panel and the technical advisors gave us that wider view on what else is going on. So
in terms of the strategic overview of the city, you kind of take that into account. We've been just talking about community facilities, and we've done a bit of an audit really about what's available in the city and what's being used. Is that part of the discussion? You look at that big picture? Yeah.
So that is, I suppose, it's not a specific criteria in the sense that we're not looking at. So the applicants aren't being asked to give us information about what is already out there. So we're looking at the application as it's come in, and the merits of the application, and then based on our knowledge of what else is happening, we then can make a decision on that. Yeah.
Right, Yanni.
I just wanted to stand back because the Housing Trust has got applications into the fund. So
For that particular one?
Yeah, well, but also actually my general feeling is that if a group that you're with is applied to a fund, giving it to others, voting on giving it to others, it, can have an impact or not have an impact. So I'll just stand back from the whole report, given there's two applications in from the Housing Trust. So I just wanted to make that clear and disclose that.
Yeah. Pauline.
Quick one on the finances. I think these add up to just roughly 123 or something. Is it? I'm just questioning whatever it is. The total fund is 442. Are we likely to see that called on this financial year?
So our expectation is to fully allocate the fund every year. That you've put aside money for this purpose, and our intention is to allocate it to projects every year.
And we have two rounds this financial year, so we'll have a second.
But you've got a
round.
big chunk of it left.
Yeah.
But we do have the opportunity, because in the terms of reference, when this fund was set up, to roll over the funds. So if it's unspent,
Yeah.
this financial, if we don't find projects that are worthy of
Yeah.
supporting, then it will roll over to the following financial year.
So is it 400 a year?
Mhm.
Yes,
So that obviously there was 23 held over from last year, or
Correct.
22. So that adds to the 400.
yes.
Was that 23 held over, or was that returned funds when a project didn't happen, I think?
No, it was rolled over from, it was effectively a commitment
Yeah, yeah.
for one of the projects that
then
we're going to
didn't.
discuss today.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions that are generic? Okay, so for a couple of specific ones dealing with the actual application forms and things, I think we'll move into PX before we come back out again. So I'm going to move that we move into PX for the protection of commercially confidential information on this paper. Do I